Hey everyone, welcome to the video going over my cheat sheet for today's late MLB main slate for today on DraftKings. There is an early slate that starts at 1 o'clock. There's about 5 games. I will say it's not the best slate in the world. So I'm going to do this video, and then I'm going to try to do another NFL video tonight. And if I have time in the morning, I will get out an early slate video, but I will say not the biggest fan of that slate. Anyway, before we continue, if you could leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out, and I really appreciate it. And make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my new videos. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, links in the description below. I'm at ChrisPennell16. And if you like access to my entire MLB sheet in my Slack chat, links in the description below for my Patreon. I do a lot of updates throughout the day. Like yesterday, I had Kyle Gibson, Anibal Sanchez, and Dylan Bundy as my pitching core, and I actually ended up changing that completely. I ended up going with Max Fried, John Means, because he ended up being the pitcher instead of Dylan Bundy. And then I believe I kept Anibal Sanchez on there. But ended up Fried and Means ended up working out really well for cash games. I know Fried was 85% owned, I'm pretty sure, which is insane. He's 71% in one of my GPPs. And then John Means has some ownership too. It's just an easy way to fit in the core stack. I got 1 through 4 for cores, and I had Sam Hilliard on there. So just things change throughout the day once you start building lineups, and I do put all the updates on my Patreon and my on my sheet here that says updates from the day. So if you're interested in that, again, link in the description below for my Patreon. And let's get into today's slate. So we have Steven Strasburg at 11,200, Dylan Bundy at 7,300, and Dallas Keuchel at 9,600. So let's dive into the pitching sheet to see why I like the guys that I like. So let me sort this by salary first. I have both slates on here. If you're wondering why there's 30 people, I got both slates mixed on here. So we have Steven Strasburg, 11,200. He's been elite this season. 3.3 xFIP, 28.8% strikeout rate, 6.2% walk rate, only a 30% hard contact rate allowed, which is best in the entire slate. He has been fantastic. He's a huge favorite. I believe negative 300 right now. And he's facing a Marlins team who really struggles with right-handed bats. If we look at their splits versus righties, it's not pretty. Now, it's pretty for Strasburg, though. So they have a 25% strikeout rate, 124 team ISO, which is by far the lowest on the slate, 283 team WOBA, 75 WRC+. Plus. These numbers are all bottom of the barrel. I think Steven Strasburg is a fantastic play. He's got 30 to 40 point upside in this matchup. Only problem is a Coors Field slate, so it will sacrifice some of the Coors bats. So it depends. If you want to play Strasburg, you probably can't play Arenado, Story, and Blackmon together, so you're going to have to sacrifice 1 or 2 of those guys. I mean, for sure you can fit one of them in, but it's going to be hard to get a full stack in, I will say. But I think Strasburg's one of the safest plays on the entire board today, and obviously batters have a lot more variance than pitching does, usually. So I think Strasburg's a slam dunk play. And then Dallas Keuchel 9,600. Now, I'm not playing Strasburg and Keuchel together. That's just not going to leave me enough salary to do what I want with my bats. So Keuchel is another SP1 option for me. Now, he's been really good recently. He's got 3 20-point games in a row. He draws a matchup versus the White Sox, which Fried was just chalk at. I know Fried was much cheaper, but I think it's a solid matchup. He should get you about 20 points in this matchup, should pick up the win. I assume the Braves should be able to hit Reynaldo Lopez. I think it's a fine play. Now, the White Sox are much worse versus righties, but they're not the best team in the world versus lefties. Not the worst, though. But 23.8% strikeout rate, 160 team ISO, 323 team WOBA, 102 WRC+. Plus. Not the best numbers in the world, but I think Dallas Keuchel should get you 20 points here, and he's a lot cheaper than Steven Strasburg, and he's going to allow you to get one of those extra Coors bats that I was talking about earlier. If you look at Keuchel's numbers this season, 3.79 xFIP, respectable, 20.2%. Strikeout rate, respectable, not as high as I'd like it to be, but he gets a lot of ground balls at 60%, only an 18% fly ball rate. He keeps the ball on the ground. He will struggle a little bit with not with lefties. Actually, yes, I am looking at the right side. 234 ISO giving up to lefties, but 31% strikeout rate, 3% walk rate. Those numbers are excellent. If you look to righties, he's kept the ball in the park better when it comes to righties, but nonetheless, I think it's a fine matchup. 9,600. I don't mind it. I don't mind him as your SP1 tomorrow. And then Dylan Bundy, he's got some interest from me. Now, do I think he's the safest play in the world? No, I do not. But he's got strikeout upside, and that's what I like at 7,300. I had interest in him today or yesterday whenever you're watching this, and he was 8,100, I believe. So obviously I have to like him if he's 800 cheaper at 7,300. He's got a 23% strikeout rate, 7% walk rate, not too bad. 4.54 xFIP, not too bad. He's got better numbers than most of the guys in this price range, which makes me like him. Now, if you look at Brock Burke and Tim Melville, they got some really great numbers, but that's a very, very, very small sample size, so we can't really use those numbers. Dylan Bundy obviously has a much higher sample size. Now, he does give up some power, is the only concern here. So guys like Soler and Hunter Dozier with Merrifield, they worry me a little bit, but everyone else, I think he should be fine. He had a pretty nice game versus the Royals last time out. I think he got 23 points. So I am interested in him. He is worse versus righties in terms of power given up. As you can see, he is giving up a 268 ISO given up to righties, but a 28% strikeout rate. So I do have some interest in Dylan Bundy. The Royals are not the best team in the world versus righties. They're not the worst either. If you look at their splits, it's pretty middle of the road. Only a 22% strikeout rate, but a 157 team ISO, 304 team mobile, 86 WRC plus. Those numbers are not very good. So I think Dylan Bundy is a fine SP2. And if you want to go a little bit cheaper, Brock Burke at 7,200 has not been bad his first 2 games. I believe he scored 17 points in each matchup, going up against the Mariners. The only problem is he is in Texas, which is not a great park for pitching, but the Mariners do struggle with lefties. They strike out a good amount versus lefties. If you look at the Mariners splits versus them, they have a 26.7% strikeout rate. Only problem is they do have a little bit of power, 196 team ISO, 330 team mobile, 110 WRC plus. So that's the only concern there, but I think he's fine at 7,200. Both him and Bundy both have their flaws and upside, so I think they're pretty much kind of the same play. It's just really bad park for pitching for Brock Burke, but again, Seattle doesn't scare me too much. But again, not my favorite plays. But there's really not a lot of good pitching on this slate. Zach Davies is not on this slate, so don't listen to me. But Joe Musgrove, he's the kind of guy we usually go to in the lower tier, but he's in Coors, so absolutely not. And I'm not going to talk about other guys. I'm going to get confused if they're on the main slate or early slate. So that's going to be it for pitching. Let's talk about some of the bats now. So at catcher, we have Tom Murphy, 4,900 versus Brock Burke. This is only because he's in Texas, and Tom Murphy has been hitting the ball really well recently. So I think he's in play if you're going to want to spend up. But on this slate, to be honest, I'm going to spend all the way down at catcher if I can. So hopefully Jeff Mathis is in the lineup. He's facing Tommy Malone. Fly ball pitcher, gives up some power. He's in a hitter-friendly park. Jeff Mathis sucks, but he's 2K. Get us 3 points and we'll live. And then we have Dom Nunez, 3,600, lefty versus Joe Musgrove. Joe Musgrove, if we want to attack Joe Musgrove, we want to use the lefties, but this is Coors Field, so give me everybody versus him. But prefer the lefties. If you look at the pitching sheet, look at Musgrove's splits versus lefties and righties. Let me pull it up. So when it comes to the lefties, Joe Musgrove is giving up a 221 ISO, 334 WOBA, 17% strikeout rate. Then to the righties, much better numbers, 23% strikeout rate, 169 team ISO given up, 295 WOBA. So the lefties are obviously the preferred options here, but if you want to use Story, Arenado, obviously no problem at all with that. So let's get back into the bats now. So yeah, that's going to do it for the bats. Dom Nunez is a lefty catcher for the Rockies, so I do like him. And then first base, we have Josh Bell. I do prefer Daniel Murphy in this tier, I will say that. But Josh Bell, 5,700 versus Tim Melville. Obviously, we don't have a lot of data to use on him. He had a nice first start in Coors Field, but I think the Pirates should probably put up a lot of runs here. No reason why they can't. I think he pitched over his head. So, and Josh Bell has been very good versus righties this season, so I don't mind using him. But I really much prefer going with Daniel Murphy. He saves some salary. He's going to allow you to get some Steven Strasburg and get some Coors exposure. He's just too cheap here. I know he doesn't have a lot of power. He hasn't homered in forever. But too cheap for probably most likely hitting fourth in Coors Field versus Joe Musgrove, who will struggle with the lefties. Then Sam Travis, 3,600. I hope he does good tonight. He's not in my lineup, but I did have him as one of my plays for today, and he's in a good spot versus a lefty, and he's facing another lefty today in Dylan Peters. Not the best pitcher in the world, not the worst, but 3,600. He should be batting fifth. I like that a lot. Good value there. And second base, Adam Frazier, 4,900. I know last night he had a 4-hit game. Was it 5-hit? 4 or 5-hit game. He did very well, as all the Pirates did. They put up a touchdown in the first inning. I think they won. Not won. I think that was 7-0 at the end of the first inning, so don't expect that again. I think Coors scored about 19 runs last night. That was nuts. Hopefully they do that again because I got a full Rockies stack. But yeah, that was a nutty game. The Rockies almost came all the way back at the end. They pulled their starters, and then the middle of the order ended up hitting really well. And then Sam Hilliard had that really nice home run, which is very clutch for me. It put me back in the cash. So that was a nice ending to the night. But yeah, I love this Coors game. I love the Pirates, the lefties mostly, but I like Starling Marte too. Ryan McMahon, 4,700 versus Joe Musgrove. Again, just a lefty versus Musgrove. And now Blackman was out of the lineup yesterday, so he ended up batting second, but I can't imagine Blackman's out of the lineup again. So McMahon should bat around fifth, which I think is fine. Nick Solak, I think I'm saying that right, 3,900 versus Tommy Malone, just righty on lefty matchup. He should be batting around cleanup. And like I said, Malone gives up some power, fly ball pitcher, bad park for pitching. Don't mind using him at all, 3,900. Then at third base, we have Nolan Arenado, 5,400. Now, like I said, I prefer the lefties versus Musgrove, but obviously a full stack is in play here. But they're definitely secondary options when it comes to guys like Charlie Blackmon and Daniel Murphy. And then Colin Moran at 5,000 versus Melville. Moran hits righties very well. We're in Coors Field. He had a really good game last time out. He's not a bad hitter. 5K is a lot to pay for that guy, but again, it's Coors Field, so I do like him. And he gets the platoon advantage. And then Logan Forsythe, if we need some salary savings, 3,400, cheap righty versus Tommy Malone. Forsythe only does one thing well. He doesn't really even do it well anyway, but he hits lefties. We're in Texas. I don't mind it. And at shortstop, we have Trevor Story, 5,600. Story's been very, very good versus righties this season, but like I said, I do prefer the lefties. Again, not opposed to a full core stack, though. Love Trevor Story, obviously. He's been hitting leadoff recently, so I do like that, too. Not like it was a big deal that he was hitting second, but don't mind him. And then Elvis Andrus at 4,600. Righty on lefty action here versus Tommy Malone. Fly ball pitcher, bad park for pitching, good park for hitting. Don't mind him. Then Xander Bogaerts, 5,400 versus Dylan Peters. He's been great versus lefties this season, and I don't think a full Red Sox stack is out of the question. Then in the high-end outfield, we have Charlie Blackmon at 5,700 versus Joe Musgrove. If you're going to pay all the way up for a Rockies bat, I would prefer to do Blackmon as it's a lefty versus Musgrove. And Charlie Blackmon just kills righties in Coors Field. Starling Marte, 5,800. He's been great versus righties this season, so I don't mind taking a stab here, but Blackmon's 100 cheaper, so I prefer him. Then Gino Martinez, it's by rule of law, he is on the sheet if he's facing a lefty, and that's what he's doing. So definitely have to play. No, you don't have to play Gino Martinez, but he's definitely in play. And then in the mid-range outfield, Sam Hilliard is a core play for me. I've been playing this guy recently, and hopefully he does good tonight. Draws another good matchup versus Musgrove. Struggles with lefties. Sam Hilliard should be batting around 6th, and he was great in AAA. A lot of home runs, a lot of RBIs. He had a home run last night. Give me some Sam Hilliard. He's just a little bit too cheap for being in Coors Field. Ian Desmond, 4,300. If he's in the lineup, I prefer him versus lefties, but I don't mind taking cheap Coors exposure. Then Jorge Soler, 4,300. He's one of the guys that scares me for using Dylan Bundy because, Soler has a ton of power this season, especially versus righties. I want to say he homered a little bit ago. I forget if that was that guy who homered for the Royals, but I think he did. So he's got a ton of power. Bundy does give up more power to righties, but with a higher strikeout percentage. So I don't mind using Soler as a one-off, but not too interested since I have interest in Dylan Bundy. Then in the value outfield, we have Josh Van Meter at 3,900 versus Ponce de Leon. Now, I think he's pitching this game. I saw two different things because I think the Cardinals have a doubleheader tomorrow, so they're on the early slate as well. But either way, he should be facing a righty, and Van Meter has been pretty decent versus righties this season, and he's going to be leading off, so he makes sense. Matt Joyce has been swinging a semi-hot bat, and he's a lefty versus Reynaldo Lopez. Don't mind that. Justin Upton, 3,700 versus Brian Johnson. Not my favorite play in the world, but he's just really cheap. And then Sam Travis at 3,600. We already talked about him. Let's go over some of the core plays and top stacks for me. We have Strasburg, 11,200. If you can't afford him, don't feel like you have to play him, because I'd prefer to play him. And I just realized the pitcher's K percentage just went out on me, so let's update that live. It's going to bother me if not. I don't know if any of you guys have your own spreadsheets and if you import from Fangraphs, but it's been very buggy lately. Like half the stuff deletes and I have to refresh it throughout the day. It's just really annoying. But, oh well. All right, anyway, Strasburg. If you can't afford him with your Rockies bats, I have no problem dropping down to Dallas Keuchel. I think he's a safe option, but definitely love Steven Strasburg tomorrow if you can afford him. Daniel Murphy, 4,700, just too cheap. And then Sam Hilliard's too cheap. Both are in Coors Field and in the 4K range, so I like it a lot. Drop the platoon advantage, and their splits match up well with Musgrove's splits. And then the top stacks for me are the Rockies, obviously, Pirates, obviously, and the Rangers and Red Sox should be a little bit lower owned, but they'll still have some ownership. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for the video. Remember to leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate that. And hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on my new videos. Follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. NASCAR is back this weekend, so I will have my NASCAR video out I believe qualifying's at 2:30 tomorrow. That's going to give or take an hour. Probably not an hour, but I'll probably have everything up around 3:30, 4 o'clock. And then I got fantasy drafts on Saturday night. Very excited for that. Then another one Sunday afternoon. So very excited for football season. I will have my football video. I should have a football video out tonight. If not tonight, tomorrow. And if you haven't watched any of my other NFL videos, I posted like 5 of them already, so I'd recommend checking those out. And I'll leave you guys with that. I wish you guys the best of luck tomorrow and have a great start to the weekend.